Did you think we're not going to make it?
Oh, we definitely thought we were not going to make it, because in the fog of war, there's no way to know how long it will take for demand to come back. This is a lot like COVID in 2020, when companies just had no idea, like, how long is this going to last? Is it going to be 2-3 weeks, or is it going to be forever? People want autonomy. They want to understand the mission and the vision and the strategy of the company, and then they want to basically be left alone. I don't like that a whole generation of founders are being trained to think that it's normal to walk into a company and lay off 60% of the people before meeting any of them. Maybe documentaries or biopics don't get written about nice leaders, but there are some. Hey, you have to do this on this date and this time because I'm your boss and I manage you, and you'll get in trouble if you don't do it. That leadership style, I don't think it really resonates in 2025. The thing about startups is you're always selling in one way or another. So charisma, sales ability, dream weaving, the ability to story tell is incredibly important.
Welcome, Spencer.
Thanks, James. Thanks for having me.
This is going to be fun. We've chatted before, we've podcasted before even. And so I know so much about your story. I'm going to try to bring out the highlights, but I also would love if you'd be down to give a little bit of background for you before you started companies, before you became a founder, where you grew up and that
Sure.
good stuff.
Yeah. So I lived in New York till I was 12. And then my parents moved me out here to Los Angeles. And I had a really interesting upbringing. My dad was an accountant, actually, and at a Big 8 accounting firm, kind of a Wall Street type accounting firm. And in 1972, he was in the restroom, and the guy next to him was kind of cranky and like, "Oh, I'm so upset." Oh, my dad said, "What's the problem? I'm a partner here at this accounting firm." And the guy said, "Well, I flew all the way here from London to hire your accounting firm, and your stupid firm said they won't work with my client." And my dad said, "Who's your client?" He said, "The Rolling Stones." And this was Prince Rupert Lowenstein, who was the manager of the Rolling Stones at the time, and actually until he passed away just a couple of years ago. And my dad said, "Well, that's kind of interesting." And so my dad took a leave of absence from his accounting firm to be the tour accountant on the 1972 European tour. This is before I was born. And it kicked off a 40-something year career for my dad in the music industry, where he eventually he started his own business. He became the business manager and tour producer for the Rolling Stones, for U2, David Bowie, Paul Simon, Pink Floyd, lots and lots of other bands. And
good Lord,
that was my childhood. So basically, I was born in 1975. I grew up touring most summers with one of these bands, going to tons of concerts and watching my dad innovate his career as the music industry changed so much in my lifetime, from just the formats changing from obviously records to 8-tracks to cassettes to CDs to streaming, that stimulated huge change in his business, to the way the concert industry changed and the way he and his team really innovated on the touring industry. So today, the way most tours happen are a model that he and his team basically helped invent, which is a company or an investor group essentially buys the tour, and then the artist sort of works for the producers, and the producers that bought the tour, they own all the rights to the merchandise and the ancillary revenue and the box office and everything, the merch and everything else.
Out of curiosity, what was the benefit of that model versus the way it was done?
Oh, it dramatically improved the production value, because the way it all started was his bands that he would basically provide the accounting services and the business management services. They would say to him in the 70s, they'd be like, "We've been touring for 3 years. Why are we broke? Like, where does all the money go?" And he's like, "That's because y'all are idiots. Like, you're terrible business people. If you're willing to work like the movie industry works." I mean, imagine if actors and actresses, which is the equivalent of musical artists, if they were in charge of the business aspects of a movie. Like, the movie industry wouldn't really work. The people in charge of the business aspects of the movie are the producers that put the movie together, raise the money for it, basically own the movie. And then they hire the actors and actresses, and occasionally to give them back end so that the actors and actresses get upside. So my dad flipped the music industry, the touring industry, on its head to be more like the film industry, where the artists work for the producers rather than the other way around. So anyway, this is a long-winded way of saying I grew up in and around the music industry, but more importantly, from a business standpoint, a startup standpoint, watching this innovation happen. And being at the dinner table as my dad talked about how he was changing and pivoting his business so many times through all these changes in the music industry. And so to close out that part of the story, I was always like, wow, that's super cool. I want to do that. Let me work for you. And he's always like, no, like no nepotism. Go figure your own shit out. You can't work for me. I will pay for college and then good luck. And that's kind of how it played out.
That is what so I was hoping you'd mention that aspect, that unique aspect of your background, of such an interesting story and business line that your father helped pioneer and is a legend in. And then you didn't touch music at all, being, right there next to the greatest acts of all time. But to give to where you don't have to work overtime on your background, to give listeners and the folks here a little bit more background. Spencer would go on to graduate college and then was at Goldman and TPG for a few years, and then helped start Hotwire, that went through the boom and bust of the .com bust, persevered, survived, sold for nearly $700 million on the other side of that. Then in 2005, I think you started Zillow, helped took that public as a CEO, built it for 15 years, and have invested in so many other startups as an investor, and then co-founded things that are right from the scratch, like with your daughter, right in the, I imagine, kitchen or living room, all the way to now running Match Group. So it's a massive, publicly traded company. So the breadth and exposure you have to startups and entrepreneurship is the meat of the conversation today. But I did want to ask, out of that curiosity, did you have interest in going even tangentially into music at all?
Yes. And my dad not only wouldn't let me work with him, but he basically forbade me from going into the music industry. He's like, his view was that what he was able to create entrepreneurially in the 70s, 80s, and 90s is no longer possible in the music industry because it's become an oligopoly. There are only a couple of music labels. There's really only one touring and production company, which is Live Nation, which is who my dad sold his company to. So it's just very hard to innovate because the industry's become consolidated. I think that's sort of an old person's view of things. That's like what incumbents say about disruptors. They're like, oh, it can't be done again. But anyway, he basically said, look somewhere else.
Well, moving on to the, I'd like to focus on the founder side of things before getting into the investor side of things and all things that you're seeing as an innovator, as yourself, or as a really amazing investor with AI and just everything today, here and now. But going back a little bit, and to bridge the gap from that childhood and that upbringing to today, from the founder perspective, what was Spencer at 24 co-founding Hotwire like compared to Spencer now? In 2025, what were the compare and contrast that mentality early on in your career of founding companies and today?
I'm much, much, much better today than I was then. I mean, this is one of the reasons that I teach a course, an undergraduate course on startups called Startups from Idea to Exit at Harvard College. And I've been doing it for 5 years. I have a couple hundred students every year. And it sounds kind of weird for an entrepreneurship professor to admit this, but I actually discourage my students from doing startups in college or straight out of college because they make really basic mistakes that can be avoided if they go work for at least a couple of years in tech. So the career path that I generally recommend is go do 2 or 3 years in big tech, go be a PM or a product designer or any role at a big tech company, then go do 1 or 2 years in a small tech company, and then you'll be in your mid-20s. And at that point, you've seen how products get built. You understand how product and engineering work together. You understand the role of consumer research. You've probably built something of a network with people who will go on to be angel investors in your startup. You have some collaborators that can start companies with you, and you're just in a much better position. So, I mean, fast forward now from I started Hotwire almost, I guess, 25 years ago. Crazy to think of it that way. I'm so much, I'm just much better. Like in every discipline about what a founder needs, whether it's ability to recruit, ability to manage through adversity, ability to raise money, ability to identify product market fit or build go-to-market motion. I was gonna say the only thing I'm not better in is like work ethic, because when you're 23, you have unlimited time. But actually, I'm not sure that's true either. I think I'm probably even more. I probably work a little bit fewer hours, but I'm much more productive.
You showed me your calendar once, and it was insane. So yeah, the work ethic, I can't imagine it was any stronger than it is. At least when you showed me your calendar, and it was straight up just block to block. And this was before Match Group, before being CEO again of a public company, and it was just sunrise to sunset. What would, building on that or going deeper into that, what is something that a younger you or a first-time founder that doesn't have those experiences working for a big tech company or working in space, what are some of the things that they or you as a younger version of you thought were really important in starting something, and now veteran you is like, maybe it's shifted?
I mean, I don't know. Software engineers probably won't like this answer, but there's a hero worship in tech for brilliant engineering, which is important and worthy, but that frequently crowds out or creates an underappreciation for sales abilities. And the thing about startups is you're always selling in one way or another. You're selling to investors, you're selling to the media, you're selling to influencers, you're selling to candidates that you're trying to recruit, you're selling to your parents who are like, why don't you go get a real job that pays? You're selling to your spouse or partner. So charisma, sales ability, dream weaving, the ability to story tell is incredibly important and underappreciated as compared with a brilliant software engineer that can sit in a dark room and code and write.
I've launched 7 apps before I was 16.
Sure, important, fine. But go find somebody that also has magnetism and charisma, because that's maybe even more important. In particular, in the era of AI, where we live in a vibe coding era, the ability to convince people through your powers of persuasion that what your company is doing is important or is going to be really successful, that human element is more important than ever.
That is such a interesting and contrarian take than most investors or founders around the power of sales. Do you mind building that? I remember hearing, I think Mark Andreessen said that Google is, he was a board observer at my last company, and he said this like in passing, and I was like, whoa, that kind of shifted my thought on sales. He said, Google is a sales organization masquerading as an engineering organization. And he didn't explain it. He's, like you said, it was in passing, and then I had to pick up the pieces. What does he mean by that? Do you mind talking a little bit more about the power of sales and that role that it has in the earliest stages, and obviously when getting your 1,000th or 10,000th customer?
I mean, it depends on a little bit on the specifics of the business. Picasso, which is a company I incubated with a former team from Zillow.
Huge shout out. I love Picasso as a customer.
Thank you. I didn't even, that wasn't even intentional.
No, I forgot to mention it in the background.
Will you share that?
One of the things so Spencer, like I said, his background is the rap sheet is too long to mention everything. I mean, one of the things that I will mention that's also just brilliant is I think he was Glassdoor had him as the highest rated CEO in 2017. Also started .la to build out news for SoCal startups, like almost like a gift to like SoCal startups should have more coverage, and also co-founder of Picasso, which is one of the fastest companies, maybe the fastest company to $1 billion valuation, 100 million in gross profits. So another massive, and that's like a byline, that's like a footnote, because I forgot to mention it in the other part of your background. But yeah, so tell me about sales and where that played a role there.
Picasso's business is we take luxury second homes and we fractionalize them. So we let people buy an eighth or a quarter or a half of a vacation home that they might not otherwise buy, and then we handle everything for them. So there's a technology component to that business, obviously, but we're also selling real estate, and we're selling this lifestyle to people that might want to buy a second home in Cabo or London or Malibu or any of the couple dozen cities that we operate in. My co-founder, Austin, is a fantastic salesperson. You've met him. He is charismatic. He's good looking. My wife likes to say that I should never be photographed with him. Because it does me no favors. So, he's just the kind of person that when you talk to him, you're like, yeah, I'll have what he's having. And I've seen it through, I've seen him raise money and he's excellent at it. I've seen him sell the Picasso product and he's excellent at it. I've seen him recruit. He's excellent at it. And that's just a superpower of his, that he has that magnetism and charisma. And it's really, really important for a founder. I guess the other side of this coin is I've invested in startups that have good tech and have good even early stages of product market fit, but the founding team had no go-to-market motion, no sales motion. And those companies have failed. And so the perfect co-founding team is really a three-legged stool. It's engineering, it's product, and then sales. And the three of those things coming together. Unfortunately, most co-founding teams just have two of those three, and they're usually missing sales.
Do you mind telling? I was going to wait to talk about founder patterns that you've seen or things that help you distinguish good from great when you see it. But tell me some more aspects of great founders when you meet them, when you interact on are there signals that you look for? And could you give me a specific example where you're like, that separates, could have been good, but now it became great?
So there's no such thing as just a great founder. There's only a great founder for a particular idea. I'm a pretty good founder. I don't think I would be a great founder for Magic Mind, for example. With all due respect, it's not a product or category that I'm like, jump out of bed in the morning.
Get out.
But it is
get out. You're supposed to be helping. I'm just kidding.
It is for you, and that's great. God bless. Good for you, because you live and breathe the product and you care deeply about it. You probably wouldn't be a good founder for HouseWhisper.ai, right, which is something that I'm a co-founder of, which is a software tool it's an AI co-pilot for real estate agents.
When I was reading in all my research today, I was like, I don't even know what those words.
You glossed over it, I bet. Yeah, you're like, oh, another thing Spencer did. I know. I'm super passionate about real estate agents and improving their productivity using AI. Totally fired up about it. Recruited a team out of Zillow to create that. I'm the founder and chair of that and the biggest investor. And that company is going to change the way real estate agents work. And I get super excited talking about it. So we're both good founders, but there's different founders for different types of ideas. So the thing I look for most in a founder is their passion for a particular idea. And I'll give a very specific example. I started a company called Queue, and Queue is a streaming discovery app. So it lets you figure out what to watch on TV or film based on what your friends are watching, sort of like a social TV guide. And when I first met Garrett Rothstein, who's my co-founder and the CEO of Queue, and he and I were brainstorming on this startup idea. He had been at Bird and Quibi and Snapchat, and we had mutual friends, and we were talking about this. I said, Garrett, here's a hypothetical. What if I told you couldn't do this? You couldn't pursue this startup idea just for whatever reason. And he just looked at me and he's like, I don't know what I would do, Spencer. I was put on earth to solve this problem. All I think about morning, noon, and night is how to help people figure out what shows to watch on streaming because it's too fragmented. I would do this for free. This is what I'm going to do. And I was like, okay, let's co-found this company together. So that's the primary thing that I look for, somebody that just cares deeply about the problem that we're trying to solve.
I'd love to know some other things that you look for, specific examples on a pitch that you remember of okay, that fits the model, or maybe a phone call or a Zoom call that you might have had, or in person where you were so blown away in the first 30 minutes that maybe you decided to write a check on the spot. But I'll say that on that calling piece, I heard someone describe it as, what's the thing that you would do where the only reward of doing it is that you get to do more of it. And I was like, damn, that is a great way to find your calling, is what's the thing you do where the only reward isn't financial or validation, name, fame, power, status, or anything, but it's just, you do it because the only reward you get out is you got to do more of it. But yeah.
I mean, another important thing is ability to raise money. And it's a little tacky. And so people don't like to think about it or talk about it when you're considering assessing whether to invest in a founder or a founding team or join a founding team. But capital is the oxygen that keeps startups alive. And the name of the game is, it's like you're you're driving your car cross country with one tank of gas, and you have to figure out when do you get more gas and time it to get to the next gas station. And each of those gas stations driving all across country is venture capital. And there are people that can create new gas stations along the way because they're really good at raising money, either because of their network or their charisma or their storytelling or whatever. The startups that I've invested in as an angel investor that I regret are the ones that I misjudged that. The ones where I remember being in the pitches, being a pitch and thinking, I really love this. I love what this person's trying to do. They're passionate about the problem. They're building a great product, but this pitch isn't very good. Like I'm going to invest because I can see past that. And does not make me an enlightened investor. It's a terrible idea. If the person is not good at pitching and selling to an investor, don't give them money because they're going to fail to convince the next people. And so ability to raise money is just like wildly important.
Does that, it reminds me of a founder that invests in, Tara from Rupa Health. She, like, first meeting just was so charismatic, but also it was like jujitsu. It's just the conversation was so fluid. She wove, you said dream weaving. I haven't heard that term in forever, since Dreamweaver, the software maybe. And great founders weave these points in of like, I built this before and I really learned this insight. And one of the things that my co-founder, who was also a co-founder of so-and-so, I could see what she was doing. Maybe it was super preternaturally. She didn't even maybe mean to, but I was like, validation point, that de-risking me making a better within like 7 minutes, 11 minutes into the conversation. And also just showing like, wow, she has a real command of what would be interesting to me. She's already done some
read the room.
Read the room so well. And I invested specifically because they didn't have a product. They ended up pivoting and recently just sold. But I remember making the decision, not telling her like 15, 16 minutes in, like, I'm going to write a check to this gal because I'm questioning whether I should stop doing what I'm doing to follow them, because she's building such a really great tapestry of an opportunity that they ended up pivoting away from. But the thought process was like, if she can sell me on that, she's going to sell co-founders, employees, customers,
and maybe an acquirer. Yeah, I mean, I coach a lot of founders. They just have to get reps also. So go join Toastmasters, which is like a public speaking thing, or speak to an AI and have it coach you. I mean, there's like a million resources now. Watch YouTube videos about how to be a good public speaker. There's so many resources available to improve this important skill. Take one less coding class in college and take one more public speaking class. Like that will serve you well.
You mentioned, so underscore that's sales. That's never come up, and I don't know if that has ever come up in any conversation with a founder on the podcast of the paramount importance of sales. But it is so true. I love that you touched on, you got to sell your parents. It is so true. The first like year and a half, 2 years, if you have like parental disapproval, that will weigh the hell on you. Versus you have their support. What you mentioned, Austin's superpowers, a superpower in that I'll have what he's having. What are your superpowers that you have discovered over the last 25 years?
I'm pretty good at attracting good people and getting them aligned.
How do you do it?
I learned this skill. This is going to take me back, but I learned this skill as editor-in-chief of the high school newspaper. And the thing about being editor-in-chief of the high school newspaper, unlike other high school activities, you're managing your peers. So high school sports, for example, you learn teamwork, and that's great, but there's no management role. Even the captain of the team doesn't manage the other teammates. But the thing about the high school newspaper is you're actually staffing people on projects. And frequently those people are older. You might be a 10th grader and you're telling a 12th grader, hey, write this article about this topic and get the draft in by this date. And the 12th graders usually, might be like, screw you, 10th grader. Like, who are you to tell me what to do? But it was a really formative leadership and management experience for me, having that. And what it does is it teaches you how to motivate people through sort of soft power. Like, okay, 12th grader who's taller and, bigger than I am, here's why I think you should get this done by this deadline. And if you do that, then let me paint the picture of the greater good of why we'll be able to tell this important story if you do your part. Instead of saying, hey, you have to do this on this date and this time, because I'm your boss and I manage you and you'll get in trouble if you don't do it. That leadership style I don't think it really resonates in 2025. People want autonomy. They want to understand the mission and the vision and the strategy of the company, and then they want to basically be left alone. And so if I've adopted this servant leadership model, started with a high school newspaper. It then extended to Hotwire when I was 23 and we started this company. And I remember sitting across the table from people who were what I thought at the time was impossibly old, people in their mid to late 40s, which is now me. And I remember being 23 and thinking, how can I manage a 48-year-old who's been in the travel industry for 20 years, has worked at all these hotel companies and airlines, and who I'm faking it till I make it. How can I tell him what to do? And the answer, what I quickly learned was that I shouldn't really tell him what to do. Instead, I should tell him what I'm going to do to help him be more successful. So this servant leadership construct of a manager working for the direct report, a manager saying to a direct report, what do you need from me to help you clear your roadblocks? A manager in a one-on-one taking notes and to-dos. So a good one-on-one is one where the manager gets staffed on things rather than the manager telling the direct report what to do. The manager says, oh, okay, you need my help clear this roadblock. You need me to respond to that thing you wanted my input on. You need me to help this peer of yours complete some project to help you be more successful. Okay, no problem. I got this. Well, who works for whom? Like the manager works for the employee. And so that started with high school newspaper, and then it extended to being a young executive, a young founder, a young manager that had no choice but to manage that way. And now that I think is my superpower today.
In the 25-year career, can you tell me one story that helped shape who you've become today that's maybe like singed in your brain, or like in your transgenerational epigenetics, that people inherit that maybe the high moment or trough of stress?
Yeah, well, I mean, it definitely low moment. That's when you figure out who you really are as a leader and as a manager. So, for me, undoubtedly, it was September 11th, 2001, and that was 9/11. And for those that are too young to know what happened on 9/11, there were 4 planes that were hijacked and 3,000 Americans were killed. And for me, I was in my apartment in San Francisco. Hotwire was about 2 years old. We were doing very well as a startup. We had about 200 employees. Phone rang in my apartment in San Francisco. And it was my fiance, who's now my wife, that was in a different city. She said, turn on the TV. And of course, I watched the tragedy unfold on TV, like most Americans and most people around the world. But for me, I had been at the Millennium Hilton 2 days earlier on September 9th, which was crushed on September 11th. I was on the flight on September 10th from Newark to SFO, the exact flight that was then hijacked on September 11th. So I was saved by just a day. And then the phone rang a couple hours later, and it was the FBI that wanted to know what we, Hotwire, knew about these customers who had bought tickets from us, who were the hijackers. So not the September 11th flights, but the September 10th flights from Bangor, Maine to Boston Logan that put that cell in position in Boston. They bought those tickets on Hotwire. And only my co-founder and I knew that. We didn't share that with the whole company. I didn't actually even tell anyone publicly until just a couple of years ago, until more than 20 years had passed. I decided that was the statute of limitations on sharing that story. The reason I share that detail is like this weird, tragic personal connection to the tragedy, this sense of guilt that my co-founder and I had. And then we had to spring into action and figure out what the hell to do, because we had tens of thousands of customers stranded all around the world that had bought outbound airline tickets and couldn't fly because planes were grounded for 12 days. And then we had thousands and thousands of customers that wanted refunds because they were afraid to fly. And we sold a non-refundable travel product. And then nobody wanted to travel for a year because they didn't think it was safe. So our little online travel startup that was doing really well, that was on an IPO path, was basically screwed. And that's when you figure out what how good a manager you are. And I was 25 at the time. So what we did was we arranged for basically a down round, rescue financing. The CEO's first and most important job is to make sure you don't run out of money. Don't run out of money. Don't run out of your money. That's the oxygen. You have to make sure you don't run out of money. So we went and did that. That was punitive and really rough on the prior shareholders of the company, including management and co-founders, but it was the right thing to do. We then right-sized the company, which was really hard, to go from 200 employees to 150. These were friends and colleagues, and it was the first time in my career that I'd ever laid people off. And it was really hard and trying, especially as a first-time leader. And then we worked to save the company, and we pivoted the business from airline tickets to hotels. We changed all the products and positioning, and I remember it was changed the default logic on the homepage, and change everything about the ad campaigns, and figure how to.
Did you think we're not going to make it?
Oh,
at
we
all?
definitely thought we were not going to make it. I mean, we thought we'd probably run out of money within about 6 months, because in the fog of war, there's no way to know how long it will take for demand to come back. This is a lot like COVID in 2020, when companies just had no idea, like, how long is this going to last? Is it going to be 2-3 weeks, or is it going to be forever? Like, there was a chance it was going to be forever, that people were never going to gather in public spaces again. Remember, like, it was dark times, right? And back then it was really dark times too. We had no idea how long it would take for travel demand to return. So I'll fast forward. By 2 years later, by 2003, we had saved the company. Things were going well again. And then we ended up selling for $700 million, which was at the time the largest all cash sale of a tech company up till that point in time in 2003. So it ended up being a very good exit. And most importantly, most gratifyingly, is Hotwire still exists to this day. You can still go to hotwire.com and buy a hotel room, airline tickets, rental car, and I still do. And that, to me, is the thing I'm most proud of, when I thought the company was probably toast. So, in the class that I teach, we do a whole case study. Harvard Business School wrote an HBS case study on this, on me and my co-founder running Hotwire through 9/11. And I teach it in this Harvard College class. And the one thing we do in that class is we have 4 or 5 students come up in front of the whole class and deliver a couple of students we make deliver the September 12th message, which is the "I'm really sorry, we're laying off a quarter of you." And then we make a couple people deliver the September 13th message, which is to the survivors, the go forward plan, okay, we're going to figure this out together. Let's charge up that hill together. And every student has to record a video of both of those as the homework assignment for that week. And it's really impactful as a student to be forced to role play and stand up and lay off a quarter of your students and try to figure out, because unfortunately, most founders will find themselves in that position at some point in their career. Unfortunately, I found myself in that position 5 times in my career. That was just the first time. The most recent time was last week, just to keep it real. When we laid off 13% of Tinder, of Match Group, and 20% of Tinder. So, and I'm not like a particularly unlucky executive. 5 times in 25 years is like not that unsurprising. It unfortunately happens. It happens.
That sounds like a batting average for one of the most successful founders. So what can mere mortals hope for? It sounds like if you do it long enough, you will have these moments. I've had 2 of those moments. And what was it like, just like going into the office the next day? What was your inner dialogue?
I mean, I still remember this woman, one of my direct reports, her name was Heather, and Survivor, which I saw Survivor just announced its 50th season. But at the time, this is 2001, Survivor had basically just launched, and it was a big, big deal. And I remember we were walking to the conference room to let people go, and Heather turned to me and she said, "I've been voted off the island, haven't I?" And I just, like, those words still ring in my ears, like that she would have the sense of humor, the kind of gallows humor to say that at that moment. And it broke the ice. And I know, anyway, it was hard. The way that you get a company to recover from something like this is you reconnect employees to the mission. You remind them of why they chose to work there in the first place. You explain to employees that, hey, I'll do it from a Match Group standpoint, what I talked about last week, and then again today, and I'll probably do 10 more times before the company starts to really move forward and heal, which is, our mission is to spark meaningful connections. Our mission is to cure loneliness. And there's a loneliness epidemic around the world. And working at this company, it gives you this canvas to impact tens of millions of people around the world so that they can find a date, a spouse, a friend, a hookup, anywhere in between. And that's really damn important now more than ever. So I know this is hard. I know it's difficult losing colleagues that we're not going to work with anymore, but you do important work. And if you show up here, and you're going to be able to do the best work of your career for the next couple of years, and it'll really make an impact on people's lives. And if that's what you have to do. You have to articulate the mission. It's easier if this comes full circle to the founder passion. If you actually give a shit about your mission, like I do about Match Group's mission, or like I did about Zillow's mission or Hotwire's mission, it's actually pretty easy because you're speaking authentically and then people believe it. If you're, I'll tell you a quick story about this. So I had another friend, a founder, and I'm like, tell me about your startup. And he's like, yeah, it's like this enterprise SaaS business. It's got about 40 million of ARR. And what we do is it's scheduling software for fast food workers. So that, if you work at McDonald's or Burger King or whatever, you use the app and you can change your shift from the morning shift to the afternoon shift or whatever. And we sell to the restaurants. And I was like, wow, boring. Like that's, so lame. And he's like, no, you don't understand, Spencer. This changes lives. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, imagine you're a single mom and you've got a sick kid and you've got a sick grandparent. And you're trying to juggle 5 different things in your life, and the ability to use our service, to have the independence, to be able to have agency around your schedule and your life and your remuneration, And I was like, okay, like I kind of see it. Like clearly he has founder market fit. This person cares deeply about his mission. And if they ever have adversity as a company, if he can articulate that to his employees, then they'll be able to manage through that adversity.
Talk about the needing that, I don't know if sales is like the driver in your golf game. Needing that over and over again in the beginning. I didn't even think about it in the inevitable tough moments of needing to guide and lead through adversity, when the writing on every wall around you might be a really negative, really pessimistic story, but you've got to have the volume and the charisma and the vision to paint over it and to paint a really positive. And Hotwire sounds about as dire of a scenario of like the writing must have been for everybody to see. Like there's just no way if you're thinking we're not going to make it, then other team members must have been thinking that as well. There's so many topics I want to get to before the Q&A, but I want to touch on something that you are, there's this, we see things like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, and we think like, oh, that's what a great founder is like. And then knowing so many other founders, I think Paul Graham said one of the most underrated virtues of a great founder is how nice they actually are. And he was talking about the Collison brothers from Stripe, and you're the epitome of just so kind, so thoughtful. Anytime we're hanging out, like I really feel like we're here. I could chat with my older brothers in investment banking. He's like, oh yeah, okay, He's not nearly the responsibilities, but a fraction of the attention. What do you attribute your kindness, thoughtfulness, going against the grain of that pattern of what we think of a great founder is to be so humble, thoughtful, kind?
Well, it's a softball question, and I appreciate it. And
it's the truth. And
I agree.
Another friend, mentee of Spencer's, Ajay, and we talk about it all the time. We're like, dude, Spencer's such.
Here's why I like the question so much, because I kind of hate that the pendulum has swung towards I'm not gonna give you all a viral moment by like talking shit about anyone in particular by name, but I don't like that a whole generation of founders are being trained to think that it's normal to walk into a company and lay off 60% of the people before meeting any of them, or I like, that's one way to run a company. There are some people that throw staplers and yell and scream, and fine, that's one way to do it. That's not my way. And I want founders listening to this, or founders here today, or just leaders or managers, to know that there are other ways to lead and manage. And maybe documentaries or biopics don't get written about nice leaders, but there are some. Satya Nadella at Microsoft is like that.
There's a lot. It honestly is more.
Jeff Weiner from LinkedIn is like that. And maybe, it doesn't sell books or tickets or whatever, but like, I don't know. I think there's an important place for that in leadership conversations. I will tell you a very quick story on this one, which is like a really memorable moment in my career. Was when my first job out of college. I was at Goldman Sachs as an investment banker, and I was working on a deal with Hank Paulson, who at the time was running the investment banking division at Goldman Sachs. He went on to become Secretary of Treasury. And I was in Hank's office at 10 p.m. and I was showing him the pages of the book and all the analysis that I had done. And we were flipping pages on the book, and he was checking it in for a meeting the next day. And the janitor came in at 10 p.m. The lights are all off outside the office. Janitor comes into his office to empty Hank's trash can. Here was, I mean, wildly powerful, massively wealthy
Titan of his
Titan,
industry.
captain of the universe. He stood up from behind his desk. He grabbed the garbage can. He walked out around. He said, good evening, Carl. Here you go. How are you tonight? Thank you for emptying my trash can. And then he took it back, and he didn't have to do any of that. And I didn't expect him to do any of that. And 99% of investment bankers or just executives or just people probably wouldn't have done any of that. And here was Hank Paulson that did it. And I'm still kind of getting goosebumps thinking about it. And I just remember that moment as it was my first job. And I remember thinking like, yeah, like that, like that's how I want to be. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess that's how I'm trying to be.
Do you attribute part of that to any philosophical worldview or anything that underpins that you rarely get a chance to talk about?
Well, I mean, my wife has helped a lot on this front, and also on every one of my fronts. I've been with my wife for 32 years. We've been married for 22 years, and she is a doctor, and she's a pediatrician, a pediatric rheumatologist at UCLA, and she's the best pediatric rheumatologist in the country as far as I'm concerned. And the reason for it is her bedside manner, because she listens to patients and families and parents of patients, and she gets thank you notes. She gets gifts. She has patients and parents telling her constantly that she's changed their life. And I've seen the way she behaves, which is pretty different from most doctors. And it has a meaningful impact on those families' lives. And that is a good reminder of how important these things are. And I've watched her career blossom, and she's helped me be nicer.
Well, talk about kind of another sales or another hidden in plain sight, being kind and nice, another kind of hidden in plain sight aspect to a great, powerful approach to your day-to-day is surrounding yourself with great people and being a great listener. That's probably one of the secret sauces of a great pitch as well, is you're coming into pitch, but and you probably see it all the time, founders that are just coming in, I'm coming 100 miles an hour. I know exactly what I'm saying. I'm going to touch on this and this and this. No listening whatsoever. Probably your eyes glaze over within a few minutes of like, oh, this person will not be able to listen to anything.
This is a huge pet peeve, and this is a big thing for founders to make sure you get right, because investors are looking for coachability. So when they ask you a question, they're partly probing because they want the answer to that question, but the good ones are mostly just trying to see how you respond. And so there is an art to hearing that feedback as a founder, acknowledging it. Let's take a common one, TAM, the total addressable market. I don't think your TAM is very big. Okay, so how do you respond to that as a founder? Like, you don't want to be argumentative. You want to, you also don't want to derail the conversation and kind of rat hole and spend 8 of your 30 minutes, really less than 30 minutes after the Zoom, the mic isn't on, whatever, and the video in the background, all that stuff, the formalities takes 4 minutes. You've got 20 something minutes left. So you want to acknowledge that objection, try to volley it back, potentially offer to follow up offline if appropriate, not be dismissive, but also not give any ground, but also appear coachable. It's hard. It's really hard, but that's something I'm always looking for.
That's it's the thing that we all hear in high school of be interested, not interesting. And when you're interested in people, like it's at a bar, at a pitch, at really anything with colleagues, like people walk away and they're like, that was the one person today that was interested in what I was doing. I want to be around that person more. And investors, it's so counterintuitive. You think like, I'm going to get money by being really interesting. But if you're interested in them, especially if it's genuine, the investor's like, wow, I really love how that, like we were saying before, just the conversation flowed. I love the way they were weaving in points instead of, it happened 2 days ago. Just a founder just 100 miles an hour and just was so, it was not
to be taken off their talk track.
Right, exactly.
They're like, no, I'm going from slide 3 to slide 4. And I moved from TAM to go to market, and you better get on board, right, investor, because that's how I'm going through this pitch. Right. It's not a conversation. They're not positioning as it should be a conversation, not a soliloquy.
Indeed. Well, that couldn't be a more perfect segue to conversational Q&A from the crowd. We've got a microphone back there that we'll bring around. So yeah, first question. Yes, you there with the glasses. Saw your hand go up. And tell us your name first as well.
Yeah, Clark Vautier from New Zealand.
Glad to meet you.
So much great material. Question for both of you, really. If you were to summarize, I know you've touched on a lot of things. What would you summarize as the main reasons co-founders fail?
Co-founders as a team or co-founders as a relationship fail?
Relationship.
Spencer?
Different levels of motivation for the idea. Kind of usually one founder falls out of love or doesn't pull their own weight. Sort of they weren't equivalently committed is I think the number one reason why co-founders relationships fail. Another can potentially be lack of trust. Sometimes also one person wants the other person's job, so they're like stepping on each other's toes. I think those are the primary causes.
Thanks.
Yeah, but people wanting different things. I want to sell it 10 million. No, I want to build this thing for my life's work and or wanting the exact same thing. I want to be CEO and I'm 2 years younger, but I really want to. And I think it's a fine balance with also a division of labor. Great division of labor.
One quick tip that is very important to do co-founder vesting schedules. So if you start a company with someone, you each own 50-50, that's great. Vest into it over 4 years, because what I've seen happen a lot is 6 months later, one person will leave or get pushed out and they own 50% and the other person is working for the other person who's long gone. So instead you should vest into your equity.
This is actually a great point of use ChatGPT or any AI client, ask it, say, what do smart founders do to protect against someone leaving, whatever you're concerned with, working with a friend or someone leaving after 6 months. And I see this in non-tech startups often where I'm friends with cafe owners and one of the cafe co-founders leaving after a month and has 30% of the equity. I was like, oh, y'all didn't know about vesting schedules, which I'm just so used to in 17, 18 years of tech. And so the vesting schedule is the perfect one. And then also just ask, what are the top 10 questions I should ask a potential co-founder? Sounds so elementary, but it's so beautiful to say, like, what do you want out of this? And you discover that, like, oh, they really want something very different than myself. But
I'd say just more generally, also use ChatGPT or use AI as your other co-founder.
Nice.
It is so valuable. And being a co-founder is very lonely. AI can help a lot.
So much. Great question. All right, next up. Yes, right down here.
Hi, I'm Alexa.
Hi, Alexa.
You've obviously jumped between founding your own companies and then going back into C-level roles in public companies. What made you make those decisions? I would just be curious to hear more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I left Zillow 5 years ago, and I spent 5 years angel investing, advising, coaching, mentoring, teaching, and I loved it. I loved the 0 to 1 stage, but I did miss operating at scale. And my wife and my 3 kids also were like, especially my stupid kids, they're like, you're always telling us to achieve our full potential. Like, is this really your full potential? Talking with founders about whether they should go from 4 employees to 5 employees or whether to raise a 300,000 bridge round or not. Like, your full potential is running huge companies. You can do this angel investing thing when you're 60 or 70. Why don't you go back to operate at scale while you still have the energy to? And that was a persuasive argument. And that combined with my interest in this category, as we've discussed, I'm a mission-oriented CEO. I wasn't looking for a job, but a job that I'm connected to the mission of, which I am connected to the mission of Match Group. That was an inspiring enough mission to get me to put the cleats back on and get back on the field again.
Great question. Yes, right there. I think, AJ?
Hey, my name is AJ. So you talk a lot about the importance of sales. What advice would you give to founders and executives who maybe weren't blessed with that natural charisma to get someone in a room and get them to sign their life away?
It can be learned. It really can. Get reps. So pick a voice AI and say, I'm gonna, help me be a better public speaker. Help me be a better speaker. on the topic of my startup. And then it will be a great coach. Practice in front of the mirror, record yourself, and then watch it back, which is really hard to do, but it's really valuable. I mean, by the way, still, believe it or not, to this day, I do quarterly media training with a professional, puts me on camera, asks me questions, makes me watch it back, critiques it, tells me how I can be better. I've been doing this for 25 years. I still have a media trainer that helps me. So it takes practice and reps and effort.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right there. Yeah.
Hello, thank you so much. I'm very passionate about like deep human connection. My Instagram's Jeremy Talks to Strangers. And I
talk about someone that has overcome, I know Jeremy's story, and overcoming a social anxiety around public speaking, and talk about reps. He's like known on social media, by the way, for the guy telling everybody to get reps and how it can be learned.
Awesome.
yeah. Yeah. So loneliness is something big passion about tackling it. And I've done dating coaching in the past, and I'm curious about dating sites in general. I know some burnout going on. How do you plan to tackle, bring more hope into real authentic connection and not just a platform that keeps you on the platform?
Yeah, we have a lot of work to do as a category and as a company. Match Group is by far the biggest in the category. So this burden falls on us. And we have 25 brands. Some do it better, handle this better than others. Hinge does, I think, a pretty good job of using technology to help solve this. So for example, one of the challenges of online dating is people ghosting you. You kind of endlessly match and then the conversations go nowhere. Hinge introduced a feature called Your Turn Limits. So you can only be having 7 concurrent conversations at a time. And it forces you to really choose and figure out which threads you want to close out and which ones you want to focus on. Tinder is working on a bunch of AI features to do similar things, to try to spark conversation and get people to actually talk. Tinder also is trying to make men behave better, because one of the big problems in the category is men are sometimes pigs and women are sometimes also not their best selves. But and AI can help with that. And Tinder has a feature called Are You Sure? Where in messaging, when you type something that our AI detects that might be inappropriate or might not be well received by the person you're chatting with, we put a little speed bump in your way. Are you sure you want to say this? Your match might view this as, perhaps off color, et cetera. And that's very, very effective at trying to improve behavior. So there's a lot of work to do on this, but we are using technology to try to improve user outcomes. And then I guess the last thing I'd say is, as a company, I've really changed our focus to prioritize user outcomes over short-term revenue and margin. And the way that the Match Group is run has changed radically in the 100 days since I've been there. It was run as a very Wall Streety, sort of run by the suits upstairs type of company, which prioritized short-term profit rather than user outcomes. And I believe if we improve user outcomes, it will pay for itself over time. And so we're prioritizing different things than we used to.
Got time for 2 more. Yeah, right back there.
Hi, James. Hi, Spencer. My name's Chloe. I have my question. James, you said something earlier about seeing Spencer's calendar and that it was just absolutely booked. Spencer, I have to ask, how's your mental health?
Question.
I'm pretty exhausted, like right now. I mean, I took a red eye Tuesday to New York. I was in New York for 12 hours yesterday. I got back here at 2 a.m. I was back at work at 7:30 a.m. So I am physically tired, but I think my mental health is great. I have a very close relationship with my wife and my 3 kids and my 2 dogs. I have a lot of close friends, and I'm very energized by the work that I'm doing. I don't know if I can sustain the pace that I'm running at for, I've been doing this, I've been back for 3 months. I don't know if I can do it for 13 years. I definitely can do it for 3 to 6 years, but it is, I'm moving at a very fast pace. Thank you for asking.
Of course.
It's a great question and a great just opportunity to answer. It can be, you can work intensely and have that work, if it's aligned with something you really care about, be more rejuvenating than rest, more rejuvenating than taking a nap for 2 hours. But we culturally don't think of those as the same thing. But yeah, if there's a through line with many of these topics, it's about really believing in the mission. Going back to the question about sales, like I I'm not good at sales. If it's something I believe in and I care about the person across from me, then it's like I'm wired to connect those two things, something I believe in that person. But I certainly can't sell something that I don't believe in. So that's a huge aspect of both managing mental health. It's like, wow, I'm feeling energized by helping people with this work that I'm doing. And also, man, this isn't really sales. I just feel like I'm connecting these two things, a product, a solution, and a problem. One more. Yes, right here. Thank you, Chloe.
Hi, I'm Odera. Thanks for speaking. I just have a question regarding, you've seen like success yourself and you've had conversations with many founders. So what's like the one pattern that you've seen across different people and yourself that's helped someone grow from having an idea to building a company that's actually tangible and is making an impact? Because, a lot of people are very passionate. A lot of people work hard, but, in order to actually like build something real, what would you say that pattern would be?
Being able to draw great people into your orbit to join your mission. So the archetype of the Stanford dropout in his basement with a hoodie coding by himself with the lights off, like that's not real life. That's not startups. That's what like Hollywood thinks startups are. That's not startups. Startups are a team sport. And people need to be great at pulling people into their cause, complementing their skill set with other superpowers that they might not have. My kids probably won't listen to this podcast, so I can probably say this. I have 3 kids. My first 2 kids are super academic and very highly accomplished intellectually. My 3rd kid is by far the most social, and people just love being around that person. My youngest daughter. And I say to all 3 kids all the time that I'm sure they'll all be successful, but I think my youngest, the charismatic one, will be the most successful because she just has a way with people and she draws them into her world, and people just want to be around her. And that is a really important skill for a founder.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
That was it. I said thank you.
Would you say she's maybe also the most interested in the other people?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. She's the most empathetic. I mean, that's another point, which is it's partly about drawing people into your orbit and building teams, but it's also that the character trait that makes you good at that gives you empathy, which makes you design better products because you give a shit. You care about other people. And that makes you a better product designer, a better company builder as well.
Yeah, there's this line I heard 6 months ago, and I keep thinking about it a lot, is you can accomplish anything if you don't care who gets credit. And I think that there's an aspect of that where people listening to this might be amazing creative forces in a team, but they don't need to be the CEO. With Magic Mind, I brought on my co-founder, William, about a year in. And then within another year, I was like, dude, you should be the CEO. Like you know how to build retail sales teams. This is a real I come from the software space. I love designing the product, the formulation. It's just stuff that I know in the brand universe, but I know nothing about SoCal, NorCal regions of Whole Foods and how they're different. And he knows these things. And I think for people that maybe have never built anything, and this is a great thing to also ask ChatGPT, we think there's like one role to create something because we see in the movies or read like about Steve Jobs, but we already talked about 3 different people as part of the founding team, but it could be 4 people. You might be an amazing ops person. It's like, I just really want to run operations. I don't ever need to be the CEO. I might not have that wiring, but you could be phenomenally successful knowing what you really are wired for and what you might not be wired for. So ops might be your thing to where sales isn't the thing. And I will tell you, every company finds an ops all-star that maybe has no interest in ever being the people person or the CEO. And that ops all-star, it gets the lion's share of responsibility. It's the lion's share of the credit internally, but it's often usually people that aren't seeking it. And you really can accomplish amazing things if you don't care who gets credit. All right. With that, we have hit our time with Spencer. With his schedule, he has something right after this. So I was not lying. So thank you, Spencer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.